join us on Patreon, and become part of our journey to uncover history's untold stories. Your support helps us create in-depth content, bring hidden narratives to life, and keep history alive for everyone.
In the cool mists of Japan's forested mountains and the far northern frontiers of Hokkaido, there lies a forgotten whisper of a history long buried beneath centuries of migration, assimilation, and national identity formation. It is a history that challenges the widely accepted narratives of homogeneity and opens the door to a more complex, multicultural past, one that includes the story of ancient black tribes who once walked the archipelago's shores. The notion may appear surprising to some, and even controversial to others, yet the deeper one dives into Japan's primordial layers of civilization, the more undeniable the clues become. Among the surviving threads of this obscured history stands the enigmatic Ainu people, an indigenous group whose traditions, physical features, and cultural roots have long perplexed scholars. Could the Ainu hold the key to uncovering Japan's earliest black inhabitants? This article will explore the idea that ancient black tribes, possibly originating from early migrations out of Africa and through Southeast Asia, played a foundational role in the formation of prehistoric Japanese society. These people, likely seafarers, hunters, and spiritualists, may have blended with or preceded the Proto-Ainu populations who today remain the oldest identifiable indigenous community in the Japanese archipelago. To understand this possible connection, one must journey far back in time, beyond written records, into the realms of anthropology, archaeology, oral tradition, and genetic science. In this expedition into the mists of antiquity, we uncover a world where the lines between myth and history blur, revealing a lost chapter of humanity that few have dared to revisit. The traditional narrative of Japanese history often begins with the Yayoi people, who arrived in Japan around 300 BCE, bringing with them rice cultivation, metal tools, and a new way of life. However, before the Yayoi came the Jomon people, hunter-gatherers who had lived in the islands for thousands of years. The Jomon era, which spanned from around 14,000 BCE to 300 BCE, marks one of the earliest sedentary cultures in human history. Their pottery, tools, and burial sites suggest a rich and complex society deeply tied to the land and sea. Yet the question remains, who were the Jomon? Anthropological evidence, especially cranial and skeletal remains, suggests that the Jomon people had features that were distinct from modern Japanese populations. Many early Western and Japanese anthropologists, including Dr. Kaneshiki Takeo and Dr. Hisashi Suzuki, noted that Jomon skulls bore strong resemblance to those of certain Melanesian, Australian Aboriginal, and African populations, broad noses, deep-set eyes, and robust jaws. Some even described them as Negroid in physical anthropology terms used at the time, noting the striking difference from later arrivals from East Asia. Genetic studies have confirmed that the Jomon population was genetically distinct from the Yayoi and modern Japanese people. Mitochondrial DNA evidence suggests a strong linkage between the Jomon and certain Southeast Asian and Oceanic populations. This implies that Japan's earliest settlers likely came from the south, possibly from regions now known as Taiwan, the Philippines, Indonesia, or even the Indian subcontinent. This migration, part of the broader out-of-Africa dispersal, could have included groups with darker skin and African ancestral traits. The Ainu, primarily residing in Hokkaido, are widely believed to be the most direct descendants of the Jomon people. Unlike the Yayoi and their successors, the Ainu retained a unique language, spiritual belief system, and physical appearance. European explorers and early Japanese scholars in the 19th and early 20th centuries often remarked on their facial hair, light skin, and features that didn't neatly fit into East Asian norms. However, those observations, heavily shaped by Eurocentric biases, often obscure the possibility that the Ainu may have emerged from a far more diverse pool of ancestors than previously acknowledged. More recent studies on Ainu DNA have reinforced the notion that the Ainu are genetically closer to Southeast Asian and Oceanic populations than to modern Japanese. Some researchers, such as Dr. Ryosuke Kimura and Dr. Erika Ishiguro, have also noted markers that can be traced to ancient Denisovan ancestry, indicating a deep genetic history that connects the Ainu not only to the Jomon, but to even more ancient human populations in Asia and beyond. Could the Ainu have inherited traits from ancient black tribes that once traversed Asia? There is compelling evidence to suggest that early black migration spread widely across Asia, long before the rise of modern racial and national identities. Tribes of African descent are known to have settled in India, the Siddhis, in the Philippines, the Itis, in Australia, the Aboriginal peoples, and in Papua New Guinea. The Ainu may very well represent the northernmost extension of this early African diaspora, blended through time with waves of other migrants. Spirituality often preserves what written history forgets. The Ainu spiritual system, rooted in animism and reverence for nature, hold many elements reminiscent of traditional African cosmologies. Central to Ainu belief is the concept of kamui, spiritual beings that inhabit animals, plants, and natural phenomena. This is strikingly similar to the animist traditions of many ancient African societies, which also recognize spirits within nature and emphasize rituals of harmony between the living and the spiritual world. The Ainu ritual of sending off bear spirits, Ioman, which involves the respectful sacrifice of a bear spirit to return it to the divine realm, bears uncanny similarities to ceremonial offerings in African and Oceanic tribal cultures. These parallels are not enough to definitively declare a cultural linkage, but they suggest a deep commonality rooted in prehistoric human spirituality, perhaps from a time when early black tribes formed the spiritual backbone of primitive societies across Asia and the Pacific. Oral histories, too, offer subtle clues. Ainu legends speak of ancient travelers from across the sea, of people with different skin and language, and of wars and peace with other races. These stories may be the distant echoes of interactions between the Jomon Ainu and other early peoples, possibly including dark-skinned migrants who arrived by sea long before recorded history began. Modern Japan has long struggled with its own multicultural roots. Throughout the 20th century, national identity was molded around the notion of racial and cultural uniformity. The Ainu suffered immense discrimination, forced assimilation, and cultural suppression under these ideologies. Their language nearly vanished, their lands were seized, and their ceremonies were banned. As a result, much of the potential historical evidence for early diverse ancestry was silenced or destroyed. This systemic erasure extends to the deeper question of race in early Japanese history. To entertain the idea of ancient black tribes in Japan was once politically and academically taboo. Only in recent decades, with the rise of genetic studies and decolonized anthropology, has space opened to revisit these forgotten possibilities. The silence surrounding this aspect of Japan's past may be as telling as the fragmented clues that remain. In exploring the possibility of ancient black tribes in Japan, one must tread carefully, resisting both myth-making and cultural romanticism. Yet, the evidence, however scattered, cannot be ignored. From skeletal remains to genetic traces, from shared spiritual patterns to geographic migration models, a compelling narrative emerges, that of a distant past where black-skinned people sailed the seas of Asia, settled unknown lands, and left behind a legacy still beating within the blood and memory of forgotten peoples like the Ainu. This is not merely a tale of lost tribes, but a testament to the interconnectedness of all human history. It challenges assumptions of race, migration, and identity, showing that Japan, like all great civilizations, is built upon layers of interaction, fusion, and forgotten beginnings. The Ainu, long marginalized and misunderstood, may indeed be living witnesses to this deeper, darker-skinned chapter of Japan's origin. As more scholars continue to explore ancient DNA, oceanic migration, and early human diversity, the truth may one day fully emerge. Until then, the legacy of the ancient black tribes of Japan and their possible connection to the Ainu remains a haunting and beautiful mystery, one that whispers from the shadows of time, asking to be remembered.